Alright guys, so just a quick one this time. I was showing you earlier how I cleaned up my case. So I went ahead and installed that. One thing to note is that along both the inner and the outer edges of the seam line of that case cover, I went ahead and put a little bit of Permatex on there. So that's something I do because I'm paranoid, but when, I don't like to have oil leaks, and I was reusing the old gasket. But the reason you do that, you put an extremely thin layer of Permatex on there, and then any irregularities in the surface of your gasket, that Permatex will kind of squish up into it and make sure it seals. But you don't want to cake it on there. Like, you just want a very little bit, just do it with your finger and spread a nice even coat on there, just enough to fill in those irregularities. If you put too much in there, then when you torque down, along the inner seam line, that silicone will bleed out and you'll have silicone gunking up your engine, so you don't want that. So I did that. I installed all the little bolts. There's this inner bolt. Remember, this goes under these gears here. This is the shorter of the 9 bolts. There's 8 bolts that are one length, and then 1 bolt that's shorter, and that's the shorter one. I cheated a little bit. I went ahead and put, this is a throttleable drill, so I've got a really low setting on it. So I put a really low setting on my drill with an impact driver bit so that it won't, when it bottoms out, it won't continue to force it. Anyways, I didn't even let any of them seat. I just kind of spun them in just until they barely seated, and then you want to torque them down to 6.5 foot-pounds. So 6.5 foot-pounds. So I torqued all those in, and then I'm doing the torsion spring upgrade. So the way this works, once I got that in, you can see I've got the new Doohickey weight lever thingy, whatever the hell you want to call it. That's on there. I oiled it up first, although I think that made it a little more difficult. I just kind of dipped it in a little bath of oil, and that's so that it's lubricated. But it made it a little more difficult to install. The way this works is you can see the torsion spring right there. So that torsion spring, again, the straight end goes in that little hole that I drilled in the crankcase cover. So I put that in, and then put the lever on the shaft, and then take the bolt for the shaft and just tighten it down. You just got to hand tighten it. Don't torque it, but just hand tighten it so that it holds this guy in place. Because again, remember how I was able to wiggle that, and if I pulled it to the right, it was tight, and if I pulled it to the left, it was loose. So you want to push it as far to the right as you can with your hand. You don't have to wrench on it. Don't wrench on it. Just push it as far to the right, or as far that way as you can with your hand. You push, and then you screw this in, and that holds it in place. And then what you get is you get this torsion spring around the shaft of this guy, and you basically, Eagle Mike says don't use pliers, but I don't see how the hell you can do it without. Happy Trail says use pliers, so I use pliers. I just got my Leatherman, and I gripped it, and what I did was I kind of, because the hook sits up here before you seat it, and so I gripped the hook and pulled down and then held it with one hand. Then I got a screwdriver and kind of wedged it in behind the crook like that so that it would hold it there, and then I loosened up with the pliers and then grabbed it all the way up here at the very top crook and like held it as tight as I could, and then just tweaked it down and just got it around, and you can see it just kind of hooks right, that's out of focus. Anyways, it just hooks right there. Can I focus that a little? That just makes it worse. Okay, well, we're not going to do that. So anyways, I got that seated, and then what you want to check, there's this little groove on top of the Doohickey. You can't see it because my spring's in there now, but you want to make sure this outermost coil kind of sits down in that groove. So the way you can do that is you take these back 2 grooves and you push them out a little bit, and then you just push that outer coil until it sits in there. And I guess that's to help when you put the starter gear back on this main shaft. The starter gear has some play in it. It can go wop 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 wop, and it can hit that. So if you can get it down in the groove, that's best. So I got the Doohickey installed, so now it's just a matter of all those gears and everything that I was working on earlier, just putting them back in. You got starter gear goes on, and then that little key goes in there. Key. I might try and rotate this a little bit just to get that key in a better position or something, because that's going to want to fall out. And then you got the 2 gears that go up here. Again, I'll Permatex this, and we'll get good to go. But yeah, so almost there.